Hi everyone, welcome to this video on how to get started with the Vue Speed Dial component. The Vue Speed Dial component is an extension of the Vue Floating Action Button, displaying a list of action buttons when clicked. It shows action buttons in linear and radial directions. In this video, I will also show you how to integrate the Vue Speed Dial button into the Vue Grid component and change the speed dial's position, display mode, direction, and a few other basic features. I will start with the application creation process. I'm going to create a Vue application using the Vue Vite command. Make sure you have installed the latest versions of Vue and Node.js. I edit my code using Visual Studio Code and view the output on a supported browser. To create a project in Vue, open Visual Studio Code and type the command npm create Vite at latest. Then, provide the app name, my Vue app. Next, I choose Vue as the framework and JavaScript as the variant. The Vue project has been created. I navigate to the newly created Vue app and install the required dependencies using the npm install command. Now the application is configured with the default settings of a Vite project. To add the Syncfusion Vue Speed Dial button component, install the Syncfusion Vue Buttons package using the command npm install at syncfusion /ej2 Vue Buttons --save. This command will install the Vue Buttons package along with its dependencies. Once the installation is completed, the application is ready to use. The first thing I must do here is register the trial license key to use Syncfusion components. I open the main.js file and import the register license method from the Syncfusion ej2 base package. Using this method, I register the trial license key. To see how to generate this license key, refer to the link in the description below. The application is now configured to use Syncfusion Vue components. To start using the speed dial, I open the app.vue page and remove the default code. Before adding the components, I would like to explain the primary actions to be performed by the speed dial in this video. You all know that CRUD operations in the data grid are primary actions. So, the idea here is to add the speed dial over the data grid component at the bottom right position, and display the grid's CRUD operations as its action items when the speed dial button is clicked. I import the speed dial component from the Syncfusion Buttons package. As I said before, I will integrate the speed dial component into the grid component. So, let me install the Syncfusion Vue Grids package using the command npm install at syncfusion /ej2 Vue Grids --save. Then, import the grid component module from the grids package. To apply styles to speed dial and grid, I add CSS references by importing the material theme. Here, I have also added dependent CSS references like pop-ups, split buttons, navigations, and so on. As I said, I am going to define the Vue Data Grid component, so I add the existing Vue Data Grid code snippet here. The explanation of this code snippet is explained clearly on the Vue Data Grid documentation page, which you can find in the description below. Also, check out the video link shown in the card above to learn more about the Vue Data Grid component. Then I add the speed dial component by adding the EJS speed dial tag. I am going to display an edit-like icon on the speed dial. So, I add the OpenIcon CSS property and set the predefined classes eIcons and eEdit. I also add a CSS reference for the EJ2 icons package. Next, I am going to display three action items: add, edit, and delete on the speed dial. So, I declare an array called items. Add an array of objects with the text property. And set appropriate values to it. I assign this array to the items property of the speed dial. I save the changes and run the application using the npm run dev command. The Syncfusion Vue Grid component is rendered with the provided data source. You can also see the speed dial button rendered on the page at its default position. Now, I want to place this speed dial on the grid component. To do that, I will use the target property. Inside the EJS grid tag, I set the ID property with an appropriate value. I define the target property of the speed dial and set the ID value of grid along with a hashtag like this. To align the speed dial button on the data grid, I need to set the position relative to the grid. See, the speed dial is at the bottom right corner of the data grid. When I click it, primary action buttons are shown. Now, I will show you how to add icons to the action items. I set the icon CSS property of the action items with appropriate predefined class names. Check now, icons are added to the action items. By default, the speed dial button is positioned at the bottom right corner of the target element. Apart from this default position, it also supports positions like top left, top center, top right, and so on. Now, I will show you how to display the speed dial at the top right corner. I set the position property to the top right. Check now, the button is positioned as specified. Notice here, the action items are displayed based on the button position. You can change the display direction using the direction property. The supported directions are left, right, up, down, and auto. To display the action items to the left, I set the direction property to the left. To display a tooltip instead of text for the action button, replace the text field name with the title. Checking now, action buttons are displayed on the left, and tooltips appear when hovering over them. Also, notice that the speed dial action items are displayed in a list-like format either horizontally or vertically, because the default display mode is linear. If I want to display those action items in a circular pattern, I can use the mode property. I define the mode property and set its value to radial inside the EJS speed dial tag. Looking here, the action items in the speed dial button are displayed in a circular pattern. Next, I will show you how to customize the radial menu using the direction and offset properties. By default, the action items render in the clockwise direction. To customize this option, I define an object called radial settings and set the direction property value to anti-clockwise to open the action items in that direction. Then I set the offset property to 50 pixels. I assign this radial settings object to the radial settings property of the speed dial. You can see in the speed dial, the action items are now shown counterclockwise, and the distance between the action items is reduced to the defined offset value. Next, I will show you how to customize the style of the speed dial button using predefined CSS classes. By default, the primary style is applied. Now, I am going to render the speed dial without any background color using the eOutline CSS class. I set the CSS class property to eOutline. See, the outline style is applied. Next, let's see how to customize the appearance of the action items using a template. First, I define a variable named itemTemplateContent and assign a division element and a span tag within it. To this division element, I add a class itemList. And to the span tag, I add iconCSS class and an appropriate style for aligning the template elements. Inside the style tag, I define those classes and set CSS styles like display, padding, and background color with appropriate values. Finally, I assign this itemTemplateContent object to the itemTemplate property of Speed Dial. Looking now, the action items are customized with the defined template content. Finally, I will show you how to add a new record to the grid component when the add item is clicked. To edit grid records, I import the edit service from the Vue Grids package. To inject it into the Provide section, I need to import Provide option from Vue. I declare an array named grid and inject the edit service. And include the grid array in the Provide section. Then, I declare an object named Edit Options and enable the Allow Adding property. Next, assign this variable to the Edit Settings property of the grid. As I said earlier, I want to add a new record when the add item is clicked. So, add the clicked event to the speed dial and assign the callback method, clicked. To dynamically access the props and methods of the grid component on a button click, I create an instance for the grid using the ref attribute. To use the ref attribute, I need to import it from Vue. Then I initialize the grid component instance. Finally, I define the clicked handler method. And within it, I check if the clicked item is add. If yes, I add a new record by calling grid's built-in method, addRecord, using the component instance. Now, when I click on this add action item, I can add a new row to the data grid. To disable the background interaction, I set the modal property to true. Check now, an overlay is created and thus the background interaction is disabled. In this video, I have shown you how to add the Syncfusion Vue Speed Dial component to a Vue application and configure its position, direction, and display mode. If you want to see a working example, download it from the GitHub link in the description below. I have also provided a link to check if you qualify for a free license key to use our Vue products through our community license. If you found this video useful, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.